Welcome back to another episode of Unscripted, the go-to podcast for those flipping the script and taking the unexpected path. I'm your host, Jessica Bergio, holistic life and business coach, author, speaker, and self-proclaimed high-energy hype girl. Each week, I'm bringing you inside. No gatekeeping here. I'll touch on proven holistic business strategies, powerful mindset shifts that have led my clients through massive transformations, and no BS conversation with industry leaders designed to help you get out of your own way to actively pursue a life of purpose. If you're ready to ditch the limitations at the door, hit follow and get ready to be activated to step boldly towards your big goals. Now let's dive in. Guys, welcome back to the show. I'm so excited you're here. How are you liking the new intro? Is it a little bit different, a little bit spicy? I am so excited to introduce you to today's guest. She has literally become a friend of mine over the last couple of months. I've been watching her growth, watching how she shows up, watching her commitment to serve people that want to be a part of community or want to be growing community. Haley Westfall spent upwards of 20 years as a corporate leader prior to pivoting into the entrepreneurial space. She now serves her clients as a business growth strategist and community building expert, equipping founders with the tools and support to create massive expansion in their business and impact. She is also the co-founder of Culture, an Arizona-based membership community for female entrepreneurs and professionals, and the host of the Table podcast. She's a wife, self-proclaimed queen of her tiny girl gang, and the ultimate serial connector. We literally dove into community building and the power of partnerships, power of entrepreneurship, and the freedom that comes with that, along with a lot of the challenges. We dove into what motivates her to build this community and what some of the biggest struggles she sees that early stage entrepreneurs are facing when it comes to scaling their business, growing a community, and all of that. She literally is one of my favorite people to jam out about community and a podcast with because, hey, she has a podcast and me and her were just firing back and forth, sharing all the things. I know that you're going to enjoy her 3-step process to networking with purpose. There's a freebie down below in the show notes if you want to grab that. She talks about it thoroughly in this episode, but it's also there for you to grab as a download so you can get into her world. If you're local to Arizona, she's got these great meetups called Culture, where she's got other business entrepreneurs in there that you can join and be a part of. If you're looking for one-day events or masterminds, she also offers those just like I do. And I think really what the coolest thing is of having a conversation with people who are building similar things that you're building is that we literally don't gatekeep. We share what's working for us, what's not. We dove into some of those kind of notions throughout this episode, but I just want to remind you that we have the upcoming Unscripted Live retreat. It's a 1-day holistic mastermind retreat in Scottsdale, June 6th. It's going to be epic and amazing. I have curated some of the most intentional sessions for you to break through limiting beliefs, to step into this next level version of you, and to really unlock some things that have maybe been holding you back while also being able to reset in real time with people who are looking to also connect and build community with other women who are trying to do the same things. Later in the afternoon, we'll be able to deep dive into your business or the potential of what your business can be. A lot of times we feel stuck because we're not quite sure of what we're doing. Therefore, we feel like we're not ready to be in a room to quote unquote mastermind, but our life is something that's worth masterminding about. So if you've been craving community, if you've been craving connection, I invite you to check out more of Unscripted Live, the 1-day holistic retreat, June 6th. And if you are looking to go deeper, in a longer container, Unscripted the Mastermind will relaunch in July, and it's going to be next level. Running it this time has been epic and amazing, and I can't wait to see what comes up for the next round. And we're already laughing. Welcome back to Unscripted, the podcast with one of my friends who's also super unscripted, Haley. I'm so excited to have you on the show today and dive into a few different topics that not only are you, I believe, an expert at, but also you and I share similar pivoting stories with our careers. So let's jump right in. Can you give the peeps a backstory of what you used to do and the evolution of what you're currently up to now, which is freaking awesome?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really funny when we make these connections with people we meet literally through the internet or connections in life, in our day-to-day business. And then we sit down and have a conversation and we're like, oh, I'm actually not alone. There's someone else living in the same amount of chaos as me. And I feel like when we were just so lucky to be able to have lunch and wine together, and we were like, wow, there's so much synchrony here. It's actually wild. So very Cliff's Notes version. I spent about 20 years in the corporate leadership space, specifically in healthcare administration. Stumbled into it at a young age, wanted a big girl job because that's what us high achievers do. And we didn't want fast food energy in our life. And so got my big girl job, climbed the ladder quick, really worked and thrived in that industry for a really long time until I didn't. And one day I got that dreaded Friday phone call. which, by the way, I was physically in office the day before, which is so wildly triggering that they waited till I was working from home. But that's a story for another day. But yeah, got that phone call and was basically like, we need to trim the fat, if you will, financially. And there's about 15 of us. You guys all make a lot of money. We need to cut costs and we're going to let you go. And it sounds extreme, but my world was rocked. I know people get let go every day, but I had never even been written up at a job. And I'm like, what the hell? What do we actually do with this scenario? Not quite sure. So as us high achievers do, pulled myself up by my bootstraps, got another job, worked with another startup for about 6 months. Same thing about 2 to 3 weeks before Christmas. You're a highest paid employee. We don't have insurance contracts. We're going to need to let you go. So I stumbled into entrepreneurship a little messily and went from making a lot of money to no money real quick. And we had to get a little scrappy. And I had a friend that reached out and was like, hey, you're really creative. You have a strategic mind. I could use some help with my social media. And I was like, yeah, cool. Like, I'll figure it out. I'll make it work. And that was the catalyst to literally build my book of business the first 3 years, strictly based on word of mouth referrals. It was incredible to see what my community and my network that I had unknowingly cultivated over so much time really rallied around me in that season. I spent about the first 3 years of business doing social media management, social media strategy, one-on-one coaching, group programs. And then as we do, last year, things are going great. And I was like, I think I'm going to burn it all to the ground and start over. That seems like a good plan. But I knew, based on, quite frankly, some friends that were willing to call me on my shit, that I was playing small. And I was really designed to serve in a much higher capacity. I have a master's degree in leadership. I used to run teams of 5 to 500, new market integration, strategic operations. And they're like, what are you actually doing with your life? This is not it. So that just started my new evolution of over the last year, really rebuilding my business and really teaching founders how to scale both strategically, but really intentionally while cultivating a highly magnetic community to help support that growth.
Booyah. I love your friends. You got great friends. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And honestly, so many people overlook the natural skill set that they have because they just take it for granted. You're so good at things for 15, 20 years, you don't realize how you can move it into a different market and utilize it to help other people. And that's what we speak to a ton inside my mastermind is what are you currently already really good at? I had to go through that process of seeing the value I had in the 20 plus years I'd put inside the beauty industry as a value add in a different capacity. And it was hard to reframe and wrap my head around. So I love that you share that story of starting where you could, where somebody was inviting you to play. And then you took that, realized your strengths as you did that. People saw you for more value because you were getting out there and doing the work. And that's all part of what you now create for other people is to be seen and to get into these groups and to have these conversations so other people can see the beautiful light and the beautiful gifts that you have that you might not be capitalizing on, therefore turning into a business, turning into some sort of community. And you've become known in my world and on many other people's world as like the community builder, the expert at helping people build community. You've truly done that inside your own hometown in Arizona. And yeah, I find it fascinating what you've been able to do in a short period of time. But now looking back down your path, it does make a ton of sense. But also it's something that because you had to do it the really long way, you're now able to help people do it in a really short amount of time because you give them clarity on how to do it right the first time. So talk to me about some of these containers that you've created, especially being the table, that's your podcast, but it's also the event that you created that brings people literally to the table, which I freaking love.
Yeah. And it's been an evolution, to be honest with you. I think like you totally hit the nail on the head. There's some sort of statistic that says something along the lines of 70% of people are physically unable to recognize their greatest strength.
Oh,
and it's really sad, right? And it's because to us, if it's so natural and organic to you, sometimes we diminish that flame, if you will, where we're just like, oh, this is just a thing. And then other people are able to shine the light on. No, that's not the case. I remember when I launched The Table, which we'll talk about in a second, this series, I had said to a girlfriend, I was trying to figure out pricing, right? This looming question of pricing. What do we charge for these experiences? And I said to her, and I'm like, it's just a dinner. Those were like the words that came out of my mouth. I'm like, it's just a dinner, like low key, just a dinner. And she's like, absolutely not. It's not just a dinner. She's like, you are a curator of rooms. You are creating a platform for people to connect. You are a curator of rooms. Stop diminishing the value that you bring to the table. Insert the table. And it's just been a really cool and beautiful evolution to create that as really the cornerstone of my brand. So yes, I have a podcast. I just launched it in February, sat on it for about a year, really believe like God's timing. It was meant to launch when it launched because it feels so good. I would have just been honestly a hot mess if I would have launched it a year ago. And now have been curating some in-person experiences here in Arizona, the Table series. So these are highly curated events that are really bringing together business owners that are passionate about community, about cultivating purpose-driven relationships. It's an opportunity to connect, to be seen. I know you guys have been to an event before and you go and you're like, this is going to be it. And there's actually no time for you to even talk about what you do, right? How deflating. And how does that feel where you're like, I went and I put myself in the room and no one even knows who I am. So this series specifically is really intentionally designed to give you the mic to be able to talk about your business, to be able to serve the other people that are there. And it's just been so beautiful. It did start more as like a dinner series, but after having conversations with people, I've really found a lot of opportunity in cultivating these kind of different niche specific experiences because I want to show people community doesn't have to look a certain type of way. Literally, the one we just did in the beginning of April was a sculpt and sound. We did a like mat Pilates type class with my friend Jaden from Glow Movement. My friend Megan from Visionary Experiences led us through a sound bath. We had Bridget from Gut Personal talking about supplements. We had OMG Overnight Oats, which are like the most delicious yummy overnight oats. We had local juice from Westy's Organic. And I share all these brands because they're important and they're part of the story, and showcasing them is such a gift, and being able to allow people to get to know them is just a really beautiful opportunity in this space. So I host them monthly here in Arizona. I'm actually doing my first beta traveling table, which will be going to Sacramento in June, and really bringing this concept to other cities. Because I don't know about you, like when you travel for an event, especially if you're going far and you see it's one day, don't you feel like it's like the other side of the country? It's not that it's not valuable, but you're like, this is a lot of traveling for one day. I wish there was like a little more opportunity for me to make the best use of my time while I'm there.
Yep. And that just means we have to do one in San Diego soon. So we'll have to add that to the list.
Absolutely. So this is the concept of really bringing these things to already existing events, not taking away from, but providing a complementary experience for people to really get the best bang for their buck when they're putting themselves in these rooms. So we'll be having that in June, which I'm super excited about. A couple local conferences here, the Powerhouse Women event in August and Weekend at the Pitch Club in September. I'm hosting the table on the front end of those conferences and really offering an opportunity for my out-of-town girlies who are having some FOMO that they're not in Arizona to be able to experience the table. And I actually haven't even said this publicly, so you're the first person to know that I just solidified a venue for the Table Experience, which is going to be a large-scale event. We're going to call it an anti-conference. It's going to be all the things that you wish these large-scale events were, but maybe they're not quite hitting the mark on. And it is going to be February 21st and 22nd of 2025. So that is going to be here in Arizona. And I'm so incredibly grateful for the opportunity to just create this impact on a larger scale. So lots of moving parts, lots of exciting things, but I truly believe it's the work I was designed to do.
Oh my God, 100%. I see that fully. Like you embody everything that you teach, that you talk about. And the different variations that people can get in your world is great because whether it's a one day or it's a dinner or it is this large scale event that you're going to put on in February, hopefully someone can find themselves in all of those places. And I wanted to touch on something you said earlier that might have intimidated somebody in the sense of being handed the mic. I never liked my voice. I never could get my words out properly. I couldn't actually like ever say what I really wanted to say. How many of you know that feeling when it's almost your turn to talk? You literally feel like you're going to pass out or black out. You may have even written down what you want to say, but then you like can't even speak. That still happens to me sometimes when I get into rooms. And I just want to encourage you that it only gets easier if you start to show up and put the reps in and do it. Yeah. And the best thing, the easiest way to overcome that is to take the mic and to say, hey, this is the first time I've ever spoke on a mic. I'm really nervous. I actually don't even have a business yet. I'm actually just here to meet new high-level friends. That is enough to put yourself at the table or get into a variety of these rooms, because you're never going to get quote unquote there or to a place of comfortability where it feels easy to say, I'm Jess Bergio. I've got a podcast. I do this. Or how Haley just eloquently explained everything it is that she does and offers with confidence, with clarity, and with unapologetic certainty that she's the person to help you XYZ. So when we think of these events and we feel intimidated, whether it's from the investment price or the time or the sacrifice you might have to make to leave your family to come to these, and then you top it off with, oh my God, but she's going to hand me a fucking microphone? No fucking way, I'm not going. I want to remind you that when we surround ourselves with women who have been scared to start, but then started anyways, they know exactly how you feel. And it's in these rooms that you can be vulnerable enough to say, hey, I am shitting my pants right now, but I am so glad I'm here. And when you rip that, it's like a workout. You don't ever really want to go, but afterwards it's like sex sometimes too, right? Yeah. I feel like I'm tired, but then afterwards you're like, so glad I did that. Okay, that's why this show is called Unscripted, guys.
Yeah, we're just here for it.
We're here for it, and Haley's here for it, and that's where the power of going all in on yourself is something she's not only teaching, she just freaking announced right here on Unscripted that she's hosting her big in-person event February 21st and 22nd, which is my birthday month, so of course I'm going to be there. And what's really cool is I know that so many people realize there's a difference between growing an audience, say for your podcast, or even on social, to growing a community. Can we dig into that differentiator piece just a little bit so people maybe get a better understanding of how they could probably be showing up and inviting people into their world versus just being aspirational or inspirational on whatever platform they're using?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there is an unnecessary amount of weight that we put on our shoulders as facilitators or community builders or business owners, that you have to be everything for everyone. And that actually couldn't be further from the truth. I have a signature group program, which I didn't mention before, called People to Profit. And we really focus on entrepreneurs that are in a season of scale. And this, to your point, this could be literally bringing on your first hire, right? Maybe you're newer and this is like bringing on your first hire and that feels huge and you are shitting your pants. Or this could be like wildly 10xing your revenue streams with dialing in your offer suite, like whatever that looks like. And we focus on utilizing a community leg as part of your strategy, because it really builds this like sustainable foundation. If you envision like sticks and they're like held together with bubble gum and super glue and they're just all together and we're trying to build on top of it, it'll hold for a while, but eventually it's going to crumble. And so we really focus on building that sustainable growth, that sustainable base. And I think as the facilitators, we need to stop putting so much pressure on ourselves and understand that, no offense, this may be a shock to your ego. It's actually not about you at all. And hopefully this is actually a breath of fresh air and it's not like a hit of your pride. And maybe if it is, that's a different conversation for another day. But really the community is about turning people inward towards one another. Yes, we are the facilitators of the mission, but at the end of the day, it's about the energy exchange you can create for people with one another and far less about how much they're entertained, quote, by you as a facilitator. Now, I'm not going to say you don't matter, but if you're focusing all your energy on that particularly, you are creating an audience versus a community, right? I use this analogy sometimes where think like you're in a movie theater and we're all sitting in rows and we're facing the screen and we're all here to receive this experience from this motion picture. We could all exist in this space and literally never say a word to one another. We're all sitting there side by side. One would argue in a communal space, but we're not even interacting. And the screen is entertaining us. That's an audience. But then envision going to a wedding. You go to a wedding, you go up to the seating chart, you find your name and you're like, ooh, table 8. Who else is at my table? And you go down and you find the people at your table and you walk over. Maybe you know them, maybe you don't. But you're oftentimes sitting at rounds, right? We're all facing in towards one another. It's not up to the bride and groom to entertain you. It is up to you to make table 8 the best freaking table at this entire wedding and have the time of your life, right? And so that is a completely different experience, although arguably the same as far as bringing people together in a similar space. And so really making sure when you guys are cultivating whatever that is, if it's a formal community or if it's events or if it's fill in the blank, whatever that looks like for you, focus less on yourself and focus more on how are you creating a culture for people to feel really bought into one another? And you mentioned something I want to touch on briefly about that handing people the mic, and that can feel really scary for people. I think really, again, cultivating that culture and making it feel safe and welcoming is huge. At our Sculpt and Sound event, we're all in like workout clothes, right? Completely different dynamic. Nobody's dressed to the nines. And we did our intros literally sitting crisscross applesauce. You can tell I'm a mom. Crisscross applesauce in a circle. And we just went around the circle and everybody introduced themselves. It was like we were all sitting around at summer camp and we're just all sitting around and chatting and introduce ourselves. And it was super chill. And we had a girl there she's a corporate tech recruiter. And I have met her at a couple other events, and she's just continuously putting herself in the room because she knows she wants something. She just doesn't know what it is yet. And to her, this is a room that is of value for her time, her energy, her money, whatever that investment is, because she knows at the end of the day, she's going to walk around with those purpose-filled relationships.
Yeah, and it's a safe space to just discover and create opportunity. That's the thing I think people miss is they maybe are so fixated on what am I going to get for this? What am I going to get when I go there? What am I going to get for that price? Or even when they're working with a coach, I've had the question asked to me even where they're interested, but they're like, but what do I get for that? And I always think to myself, you usually should come in with what do you want? And it reminds me the first time I joined my first high-level mastermind, I had the bigger vision of what I hope to accomplish down the road with building an online business. But ultimately, I had to come to one thing. What was the one intention I had walking into that space or being a part of that container? And it was to leave with a few high-level friends that I could have these big, bold, dreamy conversations with that weren't going to think I was crazy. So when I was intentional about that, what do you think my focus was when I went into that room? It was connecting with people that got me, that I felt energized by. It wasn't actually to go get the strategy and tangible tools that were going to help me build my business. Did everything happen for me afterwards with all that? Yes. But there was intention when I walked into the room. And so this woman that you're speaking about, she might not even have a business right now. She's just there with other high achievers that just understand like her energy, who she is, and what she wants, like conversations she really wants to be having. And I think that's the power of a lot of these events is that we're all really tired of conversations that don't really move the needle in our life. I think a lot of us are really goal-oriented and focused, especially if you listen to mine or yours podcast or if you're in our world. And we really want things to have a deeper sense of meaning. We want our conversations with our friends to have a deeper sense of meaning. And it might be why you guys are in a season feeling disconnected from your old set of friends or even maybe your family. And so that's why some of these rooms are literally so powerful and can shift and change your perspective around what is even possible for you in your life. For me, that's what's happened over the course of the last 5 or 6 years when I made my pivot. And I remember thinking I had hit a few glass ceilings when I was working behind the chair and owning the salon because I couldn't see anything else that was going on. I was stuck in my bubble and I wasn't around other people who were pushing me. In fact, I was the only one pushing the people working for me and with me. And so that got to a point where I was done being the small fish in the big pond. And so a lot of times when you're willing to be the little fish in the big pond, it opens up a whole new world to you that is full of possibility and things that you could parlay into. Like you went into social media. That wasn't even healthcare, social media. Turns out you have a master's in leadership, right? And now here you are leading big groups and teaching people how to do this. You would have never known this is where you would have ended up had you been, even if someone had told you this is the path. That's why sometimes frameworks are a bit challenging for people because I'm like, what are you going to apply it to? Because right now you can't even foresee the possibility of what can come from all of this exposure to a variety of different conversations, a variety of different like experiences even. I remember sitting in Chris's mastermind and thinking that I was going to do something completely different, work with a totally different group of people. And I remember being like, oh my God, I can't wait to recreate a mastermind like this one day that has impact on not only people in the beauty industry, but now really I am obsessed with early stage entrepreneurship and helping people build that foundation to do the things right the first time. And so the support of having a community in that is so key because when you go to launch things, when you go to promote things, when you go to talk about stuff, people are in your community and they're either warmed up or they've been given so much value by just you sharing all the insight. It can just be you documenting your process. It doesn't have to be you constantly teaching, say, for free. So I know you have a 3-step process to like helping people network with purpose. So say people are getting into these rooms or they want to, what are some insight we can give them to how to really utilize not being the one who runs off at break and doesn't talk to anybody or the one that doesn't actually ever raise their hand or who all of a sudden when it's time for them to have the microphone, they've had to leave early. No, there's more to it, but those are they sound silly, but they happen all the time that people don't really go and get the thing that they really needed.
Yeah. I think as a participant, it's just as important, if not more, to take some ownership of your shit, because no one else is more responsible than you are for the connections that you make in these rooms. Yes, they create the container and the experience, and maybe it won't be as conducive for connections as you would have liked. But at the end of the day, you're the one who has to take that bold action to really make the best use of your time. So when I tell people, they're like, I'm not sure if I'm meant to start a formal community or this doesn't make sense for me. I'm like, let's simply start with being a more intentional participant, because then it's really shining a light on the things that are done well and not so good, or at least in your perception or opinion. And so when you go into these rooms, I want you to do 3 things. Number 1, I want you to get really crystal clear of why you're there. I think a lot of times we say yes to things out of FOMO because it's shiny and it sounds fun, but we actually have no freaking idea who's even going to be in the room, let alone what we're going to be doing or what our goal is, right? Is this room full of potential clients? Is it full of potential mentors? Maybe you're more like small fish in a big pond. Maybe it's more power partnerships, like more peers, getting really, really clear of the people that are in the room and what it is that is your goal from going into this room. Then I want you to write that down. And then I want you to think to yourself, are there hard boundaries that I have in place for my lifestyle, for my things I'm willing to do or not do, etc.? And does this experience go against any of those? So I'll give you an example. Maybe you have an unwritten boundary in your home where you don't do events during the evening, during the week. Maybe you're a mom, you have smaller kids, and that's just really challenging for you. And so that's your unwritten rule of thumb. But this event happens to be on a weeknight. I'm not saying that you have to say no right away, but we want to create a filter to say, as this scrubs through, ooh, this actually goes against my boundaries. It forces us to take a look at it with a little more of a magnifying glass to get really honest and clear with ourselves on if this is in alignment for me. You may end up saying to your partner, to your kids, whatever, hey, I know I don't normally do these, but this feels really good and aligned and like a great opportunity for me. So this is going to be a yes, but I just want to acknowledge that this isn't a normal practice for me. And again, it just creates another layer of intentionality with making sure that when you're getting into the room, it's a room that's really right for you in the season of business that you're in. And then the last thing is I want you to give yourself homework and a plan. When you go in, actually do it and actually follow up. So for example, I'll tell a quick story. I am a community partner with a local group here called Upper West Side Phoenix. And they do these events like quarterly for all of the partners. So it's a bunch of business owners, people who are in their business directory. I know a lot of them because I also run a community here in Arizona called Culture. And so I know a lot of people there. And I told myself going into this event, practice what I preach. I'm going to make 5 new connections with business owners I don't already know. That was my plan. I'm going to make connections with them. I'm going to offer an opportunity to serve. And I'm actually going to follow up because that is the place most people miss the mark. So I go into this event, I walk up, who do I see first? A bunch of business owners from Culture. And I'm like, hey girl, like we're chatting, it's comfy, whatever. It was at a wine bar. They open the doors, we go in. What do? Literally all gravitate to a table and start bullshitting. And we're talking, we get about 15 minutes in, and I literally had this epiphany of my homework. Like, this is not what I'm supposed to be doing. So I legitimately said to them, love you all. I'm going to need to take a lap. I need to make sure I do this because this is a promise I made to myself. And this is why I'm here in the evening away from my family. And I went about and did my thing and mingled with people, connected with them. And then I always like to offer an opportunity like, hey, where are you looking for support? How can I support you? Whether it's looking for a resource or whatever. And then set my little list of my follow-up action items. And I think that accountability piece is huge because it also allows us to track and look back on those events. And I actually do this in a Trello board. You could do it a different way, or you don't have to do it at all. But I like to put all my in-person engagements on a Trello board. And then I literally put notes in there. So if I meet someone there and we connect on socials or whatever, I screenshot their contact information and then I dump it into the Trello card. So that way, when that opportunity comes around again, I can, maybe it's friend of mine, maybe it's not. But I can go back and look at, oh, unscripted mastermind day. Let me click into that, click into it, and I'll have notes. I'll have the people that I met, the connections that I made. And then it's that recollection of, oh my gosh, yes, this was so good. This is a definite yes for me again. Or it's blank and you're like, was it that bad? Or was I just having such a good time that I forgot to do this? But I think those 3 steps of really getting aligned with what's your purpose, who's in the room, that's the first step. Second step is, does this go against any boundaries that I've created for myself, my family, my lifestyle, fill in the blank? And then third one, giving yourself homework and actually do it, holding yourself accountable to do it and follow up with people. If you simply incorporate those 3 things, it will transform your networking experience overnight.
Oh my God, I love that. And if you guys are walking or driving or doing anything right now that you couldn't write all that down and you're like, oh my God, I'm not going to remember this, she has a freebie that's 3 steps to networking with purpose. We'll put that below in the show notes because honestly, this is so simple, but so many people don't do it. Just the story she shared of going in, gravitating towards the people, the event's over, and you didn't actually go for the reason you wanted to go. And that'll leave us feeling like sometimes maybe that was a waste of money, or I shouldn't have wasted my time, or I don't have anything to show for going to this. And I've done this before. And so this is like the most simple but useful advice that you guys can use, and you can apply it to just about anything. I feel like the word networking kind of is oversaturated right now. People are either all about it or they want nothing to do with it. And I think honestly, at this point, when you go in with intentionality like that, you can make it like gamify it a little bit. Who can I meet that's going to excite me to want to connect with again later? And like I said, it's not so much about looking for your next best friend. When you go in with intentionality around this being a business transaction in a sense of how can I build relationship capital in this room? How can these people essentially help me and how can I help them? It's always this give and take. So when we come from the mindset of what can I get, first lead with what can I give? And you'll be surprised at what you end up receiving by giving your time, your attention, your questions, even listening is one of the biggest skill sets you could ever give, but also going in prepared. I was on a masterclass last night with Chris and Lori, and he talked about networking. He talked about the power of being able to land the plane with who you are and what you do in under 30 seconds when someone's, hey, Haley, nice to meet you. What's your story? What do you do? Now, I always like to have a couple different one of those set up because it depends on what room you're in, right? If nobody gives a shit about podcasting, I may not even mention that I have a podcast. I may speak just about mentoring and coaching. If someone's all about podcasting, I'd probably lead with the fact that I have a podcast and I love helping people start one. So dependent on where you're at, being prepared takes away that fear of anxiety, actually encourages you to speak to somebody first. And these things, again, they seem so not that big of a deal, but how many of you are nodding your head? Oh my God, yeah, I've been there. I haven't done that before. This is great advice. I'm going to put this in my back pocket. And this is why I think people like Haley and myself love talking about the foundations of building community, of building a business, because we can't build something on a whim and just, if you do have somewhat of success, you have no data to track of how you got there. And you're probably not going to be able to recreate any bit of success that you do have, let alone sustain it. So what are some things that like motivate you to keep these communities going? What drives you? I know you have said you make it about the community and about other people. What gets you excited to keep all of this going? Because you have a lot going on. And like you said, you're a mom.
I have a lot going on. I have a tiny girl gang, self-proclaimed queen here of the tiny girl gang. Yeah. And I run my coaching business with all the events. I'm also the co-founder of a community here called Collab Culture. And it's really fascinating because Collab was honestly built out of a personal desire, because I went from the corporate space where I'm used to being around people all the time and having my so-called community in that space to being honestly feeling very isolated. Aside from becoming a mom for the first time, I feel like it was like one of the most isolating times in my life where I was like, what do I do? I literally don't know where I go from here. And really searching for something that felt really aligned for me and not finding it. And finally, one of my best friends and I deciding to create it. And it's just been so transformational. And I honestly think for me, we use the phrase in the wild. Like we have this community, I'll use that as an example. There's about 140 local business owners on this membership. And we're talking like your early stage, still working in corporate or don't have a business, trying to figure out where they want to go, want to be in the room, want to soak it up, learn, connect, all the way up to like your 8-figure business owner with 150 employees in multiple locations and everything in between. And everybody is able to come into this space and still find value in a different capacity for them and what they're looking for in their business. But it's really cool when we see them in the wild, when we see them at coffee shops or collaborating on events or on a play date with their kids or going on trips together or simply supporting each other outside of the spaces that we create, that's when we know what we're doing works. And that's honestly what inspired this transformation for the coaching side in my other business to really be like, this is what I'm made to do. I'm literally doing it, proving concept. And wow, what a gift. And if I can teach people to do that and it can create even a fraction of impact in their business, I know the just absolute transformation that can occur. And so I think for me, it's like showing people you don't have to be grinding so hard alone. You don't have to be chasing cold leads and doing all these things. You can build a business and a referral structure based on integrity and based on genuine, deeply rooted relationships. We're not talking about a sheer numbers game, and experience 2x, 5x, 10x, 20x growth in your business far faster than you ever thought was possible.
So true. Yeah. All of that. I love it. And I love that you share from all of that aspect of it being so diverse and so many different levels of people, because sometimes I think we either think we don't belong in certain rooms or we're not quite sure. Are we too old, too young, too experienced, not experienced enough? Yeah. There's all of that. And so I love that you have over 140 different business people in there, which obviously no two are the same, but finding new friends. And again, that's the same reason that motivated me to join that mastermind way back when I did, was simply for that need of wanting to connect with people that were open to supporting one another, that true like hashtag women inspiring women, you know? So what are some challenges, though, that you did face aside from feeling lonely and then creating what you wished existed? What are some challenges that you faced when you were redirecting your business from social media into what you're doing now? Because this is a real-time question.
Yeah, I think number one, fear, because I'm like, oh, we already went once from having this really reliable, strong income stream to having nothing, to then rebuilding that, to then saying, we're going to light it all on fire again and start over. So quite frankly, fear was there to say, is this the right move? And what happens if it's not? Because I knew I had to go all in. I couldn't be half-assed, like toe dipped over here, toe dipped over here. To your point earlier of getting that really succinct intro when you're introducing yourself to people, it was just like far too confusing. And it's, oh, you do this, but you do this, but you still offer this, but then you do this. So I knew for myself to really commit, I had to take the full leap. So I think fear was huge, and really just reestablishing myself as being known for the thing that I wanted to be the undeniable resource for. And I'm still doing that now. So if you're listening and you're expecting it to magically happen overnight, that's not going to be the case, but consistency is clean, and just really getting dialed in with how you're introducing yourself, making sure you're consistently talking about what it is that you do, even if you think the person you're talking to isn't the ideal client or whatever the case may be. You never know. I talk about this all the time. Second degrees of separation, third degrees of separation. They could have just been having a conversation with their sister the day before, or a colleague, or they saw somebody post on Instagram looking for whatever, and just really becoming that serial connector for people to really empower them to make sure that you are creating that visibility for yourself, because it's nobody else's responsibility but your own. And making sure that is forefront of mind was some humbling advice I had to mirror back on myself, right? It's so easy to tell these things to other people. And so really being vulnerable to say, even within the spaces I'm most comfortable, like collab culture, these are my people, I've literally built it from the ground up, to be like, hey guys, this is new and it's scary. And I would love feedback on, does this hit? Are you still confused? Do you know what I do? Do you know what I help people? And being open to receiving that feedback and refining it over time. And still now, it's a little challenging. Like, I run a community and I teach people how to build community. And oftentimes people blur the lines and think it's one thing, right? It's one business. And it's, oh no, these are actually two completely different lanes. But hey, what a gift. I can serve you in all these different capacities. So I try to make it light and fun to really show people all the different opportunities that I can serve within their life and business. So yeah, it's not pretty. It's not like rainbows and unicorns, just like my stumble into entrepreneurship wasn't. But I think you and I were talking about this when we were having wine, like, what a gift that we get to choose. What a gift that one day I'm like, I don't really want to do this anymore. I'm just going to start over. Like, in what other world do you have that freedom? And so I know it feels hard a lot of times, but those are the glimmers where it's like, wow, this is really empowering. And I'm just so grateful for the opportunity to be here in this season.
Ugh, what a little bow. But we're not done yet because I still have more questions for this
Great.
girl. She's amazing, isn't she? You can see why I am just drawn to her energy, because the clarity, the journey, and the ability to serve. I know it's not what everybody wants to do, but if you are listening to this podcast, you are probably someone who is working on creating a bigger business, or bringing more people into your world, or potentially podcasting, or potentially building your own community on some capacity. So for those of you who are in the throes of it, like not feeling super great, maybe you're feeling a little bit lonely. What are the biggest struggles in people creating like a thriving and sustainable business? Because you work with so many, you have 140 in your membership group, and you get to experience a lot of people in depth and vulnerable situations at your masterminds and your program. So is there like a certain few things that people tend to struggle with on a regular basis?
Yeah, for sure. I think number one, this is going to sound very cliche, but is trying to do it alone. So
Fair.
even if you're in a season of I can't afford to outsource or whatever that looks like, I would really encourage you to even create some friendships where you can do co-working dates once a month and get in the energy of other people, be a mirror for them, and offer the opportunity for them to be a mirror for you. That will really help highlight your blind spots and allow you to be able to avoid some of those speed bumps quicker. And it just really is such a powerful resource and motivation to be in the energy of people that are doing similar work or wanting to build businesses just like you are. I think consistency is a huge thing. I think a lot of us expect things to be easy, or we want that, right? We're in a era of instant gratification and we just want to have the things now. And it's just not that way in most people's cases. And it requires grit, and it requires persistence and the commitment to be continuously showing up and doing the things and having that repetition. There's I don't remember the exact stat now because it keeps changing, but especially if you're showing up for your business in the digital space, there is something like 30 plus times that somebody has to have your message come across their peer view for it to actually register. It used to be 7. That used to be the stat like 3 years ago. And now it just compounds, continually getting more and more because we're inundated with so much digital consumption every single day, whether it's through social media, or it's through podcasting, or it's through the radio, or it's through TV, right? All these places. And so I think like we put something up on stories and we're like, nobody replied. And it's okay. Did you do it again? Did you take that data as feedback to try to figure out and work through it? And so I think we're really easy to throw in the towel when it comes to just really committing to being consistent and showing up and doing those things. And the other thing I would say from a scaling perspective is not being willing to outsource sooner. So I know as an early stage entrepreneur, oftentimes that isn't the option. It wasn't the option for me either. But I will tell you, I brought on a VA about a year after I should have. And I was at like 150% capacity instead of like 80% capacity. And it really did a disservice to us both because I wasn't in the right space to be able to really provide a great, solid onboarding training opportunity for this person. And thankfully for me, she knew a lot of the systems. It was when I was still doing social media stuff. So she was able to be a quick learn. But I really think we're like, I can do it. I can do it. I can do it. And then like stuff compounds and gets going super quick. And then we're like, oh shit. Oh shit. Like, I need help now, but I actually don't have time to train anyone to help me. So one tool that I would say very tangibly is start creating a database of everything that you do within your business. Use Loom, use Zoom, screen record, even the simplest of things. If maybe you're editing your own podcast and you're going through and doing that and uploading it to your host platform, creating your graphics, whatever the things are, just start recording them and talk through audibly the process that you're doing out loud and literally throw them in a Google Drive. You may not need them for 6 months, 12 months, whatever, but you bet your ass when you bring that first person on and you give them access to that, it's going to be a literal gold mine and such a gift of time and money and energy for them to be able to have that as a resource to go back to over the course of time. So I think those are like very tangible things that I see people struggle with the most. And again, this is not like for the faint of heart. Entrepreneurship isn't for everyone.
No,
right?
and it's not. We've literally had this conversation, and Lori, even the episode that dropped with her, she's really candidly around the amount of time that it really takes for people to absorb what it is you're putting out there, to build that know, like, and trust, to then invest in you in some level. And I think she played to that 7 number, but hers was 7 hours that people have to spend with you in order to have that know, like, and trust, to where they're open to purchasing something from you or coming into your world, even if it is a free community, even if it is something else. So that's why I speak to the power of podcasting, because if someone spends 7 hours with me, that moves the needle a lot faster than 7 story tiles, right? That's not going to do the same bit of justice. And there's different ways that we can start to show up. The consistency piece is key. And then also hiring out. That's one of the reasons I've always used a podcast agency to help me produce the show, because that's their zone of genius. Yes, I could do it myself, but there's other things that in my creative genius I need to be working on and focusing on, like networking, like recording the episodes, like getting really prepared and creating relationships, like spending time with you, going to lunch, getting to know you better so that we can create better content and potentially work together in the future. That's where my time's better spent. And like she said, not everybody can hire right away. And that's why I robbed Peter to pay Paul for so long and kept working, doing hair for as long as I did, in order to build the dream business that I now have. And in order to have an OBM who is so much more than a virtual assistant. She does a lot of things in my business because she understands my process, my message, and we've spent time working on all of that. So that's another thing that came up over and over that I want to support what you just said was Jackie Koch. This is Lori's basically sister-in-law. She spoke at the last Girlfriends in Business specifically to this point. Somebody literally raised their hand and was asking about hiring, because that's what Jackie's does, is help people find good help. And she said to Jackie, or asked her the question, like, how do we outsource without creating these SOPs? And Jackie's like, you cannot. You need a standard operating procedure to teach someone how to do it like you. Otherwise, you're wasting valuable time trying to hire them and teach them as they go. So if the first thing you do is to start to document your process, right, of how you're creating things, especially if you've tried it one way and it didn't work, essentially telling somebody what not to do is even more powerful than sometimes telling them what to do, because nothing like coming in to get a haircut and you tell me you want your hair red. Okay, well, there are so many shades of red. I want a trim. What's a trim to you? I just want an inch off. So when we can get extra clear on not only who we serve and what we do, but what type of help we need, making those lists of what are all the things that I'm potentially pretty good at, but I bet I can find someone who's even better than me at them, and then hire them to do these tasks that maybe a smidge less than what I would potentially be able to make elsewhere. And so when the math starts to like outmath, it helps you figure out, from not an emotional standpoint, but a strictly like numbers standpoint of, okay, the business is bringing in X. If I could do more over here, I could potentially pay somebody to do this. So I also know that Chris speaks to that a ton. Chris Harder talks a ton about trying to hire before you're quote unquote ready. And again, making the right hires is key. So having community, like being at something like Collab Culture, or even if it's only a virtual where you can have access to people who have maybe vetted other virtual assistants or work with somebody who's amazing. I'm constantly talking about Drea, my OBM now, because she's a freaking unicorn and I want her to be thriving and be busy and all the things. And I'm just blown away by the amount of help and support I can get when I release control of trying to manage everything myself. I'm not looking to have a really big team to manage. I'm looking for a couple key people who understand the message, understand what I'm trying to build. And remember, if you are in the entrepreneurial space, not everybody wants to have their maybe own business. A lot of people love to support other people. And that's exactly what you did when you started with the social media and building your own community. And that's how a lot of things evolve. So if you guys are thinking, oh my God, I need to go big, I need to create what Haley has, or I need to try to do what Jess does doing with a big mastermind and a podcast, start with where you're at and what kind of feels fun and maybe even just a tiny bit easy for you. And then start pitching that service out to people or talking to people about what it is you do, because you can have a podcast, you can have a social media agency, you can have a service that you provide, but if nobody knows about it, they won't hire you. So you got to be your biggest like cheerleader. You got to hype yourself up. You got to be unapologetic when you're showing up. You have to invite people into your space. I'm constantly sending podcast episodes out to people I think would enjoy them. I'm constantly inviting people into my events, all the things. So don't think that any of us are just sitting back and people are finding us. We're not sitting back waiting for these podcast episodes to record themselves. Like, we literally are being proactive and being consistent. And again, I've talked about this all the time. Consistency doesn't have to look like me or Haley or anybody else you see running at maybe a pace that you can't keep up with. So if you are following people on social media that are making you constantly feel like you're behind or that you can't keep up, please do yourself a favor. You just tap the follow button. It gives you an opportunity to just mute them. If you didn't know that was there, I didn't either. A couple of years ago,
you're welcome.
You're welcome. And honestly, I've done it to people I really admire. But because they were making me feel like I couldn't catch up or I couldn't keep up, I was like, they're not good for my soul right now. They're literally soul sucking every bit of progress I'm actually making. And therefore, I'm not enjoying any of the things I'm actually creating, which we can't create from a place of like feeling behind. It's just not. It's not a good vibe. So that's why getting in rooms with other people that have conversations around, oh, I feel like that too. Oh, show me how to unfollow people. Show me how to mute people. Like, it's great. And then to be able to share your wins with people who are genuinely supportive and want to see you win. So we're going to put all of the stuff that Haley's got going on in the show notes down below. But obviously, you can reach out to her on social media. Tell her what's up, that you heard this podcast episode. If you got a ton of value out of this, it would mean the world to us as creators to see you share it, to hear you talk about it, and to have you send it to somebody. You guys go follow her, listen to her podcast. It's amazing also. And I want to see you really soon. I get an opportunity, which I'm so grateful, to be a part of your upcoming retreat mastermind as well, which I'm really looking forward to. And if you guys are looking to get into the rooms, there's a variety of things I'm offering that Haley's offering. There are people out there creating epic shit that you can be a part of. You just gotta look for it, and you gotta be like, hey, what can I sacrifice right now in order to get myself in that room, whether it's through time, whether it's an investment or whatever. But we love to hear from you. And Haley, is there anything else you want to leave the unscripted community with? Because I know you've chosen that path that's unscripted. You continue to do things that are just like at your own pace, and I love it. It just motivates me to be around women like you. But if you've got any insight for people who are still kind of like, ooh, I don't know.
The only thing I would leave you with is self-awareness is such a gift. And I think you were speaking to that so beautifully before, of understanding that your journey doesn't have to look like someone else's and being okay with that. Also understanding that your faults do not have to be your failure, right? It's an amazing opportunity to really understand, like, hey, I'm actually best served in my business in this capacity. I'm very aware of where I become the bottleneck in my business, and I'm actively working on constantly figuring out ways to streamline those processes. And outsourcing my podcast editing right away was an immediate non-negotiable for me, because I'm like, I don't want to be the statistic of the 80% of shows that never make it past episode 8. And I really want to show up consistently. And so for me, that was a non-negotiable, which required sacrifices in other places of my business. And we just do those things to really figure out what it is that we need in order to show up in our highest capacity to be able to serve the people we want to serve. So if you're feeling overwhelmed by the concept of community, it does not have to be scary, and really give yourself the permission to try a bunch of things on for size. Every room isn't going to be for you, both virtual and in person, and you're not going to be for every room, and that's okay. But you're never going to know that if you're not willing to put yourself out there. So whether you're going by yourself, which I always recommend to people, it's going to feel scary, but that is really going to rip the Band-Aid off and make you get real with if it's aligned for you or not real quick. Or you find a buddy and maybe that feels better and you guys have a little networking buffet together. I really encourage you to just take that first step, get in the room, really be intentional about the spaces that you're stepping into and how you're connecting, and let me know how it's going, because I know it's just going to transform everything for you.
So good. You guys, it's never too late to flip the script and rewrite your life. We'll see you guys on the next episode of Unscripted.